What up, B Squad? It's your boy JB, and I am here today, you guys, with another review for Reasonable Doubt. You guys, this is season two, episode number three. Episode is titled Part Two on the Run. You guys, that is my song. I love that song by Jay Z and Beyonce. But before we go ahead and get into it, if you guys are watching this video or any other video on the channel and you guys aren't subscribed yet, then I need you guys to do me a solid favor and stop taking me out on this date and having me pay for it at the end of it. You guys know the routine. You can do me that favor by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and also by turning on your post notifications. And with that out of the way, without further ado, let's get into this episode of Reasonable Doubt, shall we? All right, you guys. So this episode was a good episode. I have a lot of things that I was thinking while watching this episode, but we will definitely discuss them as we go through the episode. So this episode opens and we see Jax. So Jax is talking to Sally, right? And they're trying to piece together Chanel's last whereabouts or where Chanel may have gone, right? So they're talking about the fact that her phone is disabled, and I think she may have had like another phone as well. That phone is disabled too, right? So Corey called Jax and she told him that Chanel is gone. And he's like, yeah, she's gone with the tune of $30 million too. And Jax is like, well, maybe she could have harmed herself. I was like, now I don't know if I believe that Chanel would harm herself. But okay, we're gonna go with what Jax is putting down, that maybe Chanel harmed herself, right? So Daniel is in the office with Corey, and Daniel told him that she hasn't used her credit cards. So Corey said that all this wouldn't have happened if Chanel had actually stayed in jail. And I was like, I actually agree with him. None of this stuff would be going on if Chanel did not post bail. And so Jax at this point said, this is why she didn't want her to be in jail, because she feared something like this would happen. And so then Jax is throwing the blame on Corey. I'm like, well, I don't know if I agree with this one, Jax. Now, like I said last week, I didn't agree. I didn't necessarily 100% agree with Corey's idea of Chanel staying in jail, but I also didn't know if I agreed with Jax's idea of, what they should have done? They should have released her on bail, but had an ankle monitor on her so that they can keep track of her. I wonder why they didn't do that. Interesting. But neither here nor there, right? So at this point, they need to find Chanel because there's a preliminary hearing that is scheduled for the next day. So Corey mentioned the judge issuing a warrant, like I guess like a bench warrant, right? And Jax is like, no, let's not do that yet. Let's see if we can find her and talk to Chanel, right? And get her to come back. So then we see Jax, Sally, and Autumn talking, right? And so this is where they were trying to go over. They were going over the last conversation that Sally had with Chanel. And so she went into the backpack that Chanel brought over for her daughter, right? And in the backpack, there was a little envelope that said open in a case of emergency. And Sally's like, this is for her safety deposit box, and I have access to it, right? So Jack says, okay, well, tomorrow, once the bank's open, we'll go down there and see what's in the deposit box, right? So Jax and Sally went down to the bank, right? They went to the safety deposit box. Turns out that Chanel had left a guardianship paper, right? So she has entrusted Sally to be Jordan's legal guardian. So at this point, they now need to figure out, when did Chanel do this, right? They need to find out if Chanel did this the night before or if she did this 2 weeks prior, right? And that's the thing. So Jax sent a text message to Daniel asking Daniel to get the security footage, right? And then in the security box, in the safety deposit box, they also found some photos of Chanel battered and bruised, right? And Jax is like, "Did you know about this?" And Sally said, "Yes, I was the one that took those pictures. She asked me not to say anything." And it's so sad when you see an abused woman asking people not to tell other people, more so because she's protecting that abuser, and it's just terrible. But it's a good thing that she did this, right? Because it's documentation of what's happened with Chanel. So then Jax called up Lewis, right? And she was upset saying how, she just did not know. And Lewis told her, how could you know? Because Chanel didn't tell you anything. So Jax is having a panic attack, and Lewis was able to calm Jax down, right? And Jax got out the car when she hung up with Lewis and smoked a cigarette, but that lighter wasn't working. I was like, God, I'm like, that's God telling you that ain't for you, girlfriend. So we see Jax back at the office, right? So they're talking about the $30 million, and it's at a dead end right about now because one, Chanel hasn't touched that money, and I'm starting to think maybe Chanel never touched the money. Maybe this wasn't Chanel in the first place, but we'll get to it as we get to it. And also, you guys, if I sound a little funny, I have braces in my mouth. I'm trying to get used to them again. So if it sounds like I have a little bit of a little slight lisp, that's what that is. But back to the episode. Now, we see Jax. Jax is really trying to make sense of this whole thing because she's like, if Chanel had this $30 million, then why? There's no way Chanel would have had them raise the money. Two, she didn't know what Sally had did, and I was like, oh my god! I figured in last week's episode that Sally put up her house, but Corey wonders if maybe everything that happened was not to draw attention to herself and maybe thinking that these could be potential red flags. So that's probably so he's and Jax was like, "Are you working with Lucy?" Like, because the way you talking, it sounded like you believe that Chanel actually intentionally did this, right? So, like I said, Sally put up a. I cannot get over the fact that Sally put up that house. Like that is so interesting to me that she put up her house. Now we see Daniel. So Daniel got the bank footage, right? And Chanel was at the bank. She was there the previous day, so they're kind of in the clear with that, right? But they realized that Chanel was not by herself. So we see in the bank footage that Chanel is at the bank with Adrian. So that's Von Hebron's character's name, Adrian, right? So we now know that Adrian is the one that helped Chanel, but now it looks like these two are in cahoots together, right? That this is a secret lover, and oh god, I can see how the defense could play this. The prosecutors, they could literally say that this is a crime of passion, right? Where Chanel was cheating on JT. JT found out about it, and Chanel took him out to run away with her lover. I can see how Miss Hardass could spin that. I really could, right? So, and this is what Corey is kind of saying, right? And Jackson looked at him like, damn, it's like you're agreeing with Lucy. He said what he's doing is he's trying to find the best strategy, right? And Jack said, well, what if she didn't touch the money because, Adrian is running the show? And when she said that, we see Adrian and Chanel at a hotel, right? And Adrian has his gun that he's putting away. And then we see Chanel trying on a wig. And Chanel is just remembering all the times that, she tried to switch up her look to keep JT from cheating on her, but she wasn't successful in keeping JT from cheating on her. I was like, girl, you were never gonna be successful in that. If a man wants to cheat, he's gonna cheat, right? Like, let's just keep it a buck with each other. If he want to cheat, he gonna do what he want to do. So then, Adrian came and pulled the wig off of her head and told Chanel that he likes her the way she is, right? And so we see them as they get it in. I was like, oh. So y'all are secret lovers. I'm gonna talk about that in just a minute, but let me pause right here real quick, you guys. Okay, you guys. So next up, we move back over with Jax. So Jax is with Sally, and they're talking about Chanel. They believe, Jax is telling her she believes she's alive, but she needs to know everything that has gone on with JT and Chanel, right? So she told her about Chanel running off with Adrian. So Sally's asking her like what will happen to her home since she put her home up for her to get out on bail. And Jax told her if she doesn't show up for her preliminary hearing, then they would keep the money that they gave them, the other money that they gave them, and then they would also be coming after her home. I was like, girl, I get that Chanel is family, but my God, I just don't know that I would ever do that for my. Ooh, and I love my family to pieces, but I don't know if I could do something like that. I really truly don't know if I could ever do something like that. You guys, let me know what you think in the comment section if you could do it. But I think I know we discussed it last week. Oh baby, I'm sorry. Sally is a better person than I am because Chanel will have to see me. So Daniel, we see Daniel. So Daniel told them that he got a hit from an ATM machine, right? So Corey wanted to go to the judge and get this bench warrant, right? But Jack says time isn't up, and he said time has been up, Jax, and they need to get in front of it, right? So then Jack showed him the photos of Chanel, and he said, well, she was very smart to document it, right? And he said that this is something that they can use against JT, but he told Jax that he needs her help, and so she finally agreed to going before the judge and asking for the warrant, right? So we see as Jax, Corey, and Miss Hardass are before the judge. So Jax and Corey are asking for a 1 week reprieve, right? Miss Hardass is like, no, because by that point she could be in Mexico, right? So then Jack said, okay, well, how about 24 hours? And Miss Hardass is over there calling Chanel a murderer, and they were like, she's not a murderer. She was abused by her husband, and that is not what we call murder, right? So I guess the judge granted them the bench warrant, and Miss Hard. So they were on the phone with. Actually, Miss Hardass was like, "Well, she's not a murderer until she takes someone out on the 405 who gets in her way." I was like, "You really, truly want to paint this woman out to be something that she's not? It's not like she took JT out and then took her kids out as well. Now that would be a murderer, but Chanel didn't do that. Like I don't like Miss Hardass. She get on my nerves. Like I really don't see it from his hard ass at all. Now we move back over to Adrian, right? So he gave Chanel a burner phone, and Chanel just wants to know when she'll be able to call her kids up. And he says not until we get to the border. And she's like, well, we're already a day behind. And he said even once you get to the border, like you should wait maybe a few weeks. So now Chanel is starting to second guess herself because her going on the run, she knows that she will be without her kids, her cousin, her friends, the people that she loved, including Adrian, right? And so Adrian tells Chanel that he loves her, he's in love with her, and that he's going with her. So then we see Miss Hardass, this bitch right here. Miss Hardass is giving a press conference, right? And then she's telling the press that Chanel has fled and she is to be considered armed and dangerous. I was like, ma'am, so you want them to take out? Uh, this will mess up your case even worse. If you label this woman as armed and dangerous, and we'll get to that in a minute because it's gonna come up a little bit later. So then we see Ms. Hardass in her office, right? And so Ms. Hardass is saying that she's getting a strange hang up phone calls, right? So I guess this is her assistant Nadine. She says, well, do you want me to get you a new SIM card and a new phone number? She was like, yes. But then Nadine left out, and Miss Hardass called the prison to see if some guy named Peter is still in prison. And they said yes. So Miss Hardass told Nadine, yeah, ixnay a new phone number and the SIM card, right? Now we move over to Jackson Corey. They're going over the strategy. So Corey wants to censor the victim. And Jax was like, well, I can set up an interview with CBN. He was like, no, I want to go to Instagram Live and I want to deal with this domestic violence advocate named Brandy, right? So we see Daniel. So Daniel is talking to Jackson. He's telling Jackson he found a partial plate and he has to talk to the girl that ghosted him, right? So Jack told him, okay, you do that, but you also, once you get down to the police station, find out what the police have. So the police, they went to go search Sally's home, and Sally's like, I put this damn house up for her. So do you think that I would be harboring a fugitive? And her husband looking at her like, I know you fucking lying. I was like, no, sir, she is not lying. Like I knew last week that was what Sally had did, went behind her husband's back, but I was like, damn, girl. I was hoping against hope that she didn't do it. Again, I get it. Family means everything to you, but damn. And we'll talk about it as we get to the end of the episode because no, we can talk about it right now. I don't think that what Miss Hardass is trying to paint is the actual picture. I'll tell you guys my theory as we get closer to the end of the episode. So we move over to Lewis, right? Lewis got the kids. So Naima came to ask Lewis if he could take her over to one of her friends' house, right? And he told her, I got a meeting. And so Naima got mad and stormed off. Spencer came in telling him, like, yo, dad, I got a fever and I got a headache. And Lewis don't know where the aspirin are. So Lewis starts his Zoom. I was like, now, sir, I get the whole Naima thing. Like, you want to go to your friends, but now it's not a good time. But your son just told you he has a fever and a headache. You might want to postpone that Zoom and take care of your son. But nope, he went to the Zoom anyways. And then Spencer was like, Dad, my head is pounding. And he was like, hold on just a minute. I was like, exactly. Hold on for a minute and take care of your damn son. My God. Sometimes I don't see it for Lewis, but other times, in this particular moment, Lewis kind of pissed. Okay, so after that, we see Daniel. Daniel went down to the police station to see Cynthia, only to find out that Cynthia no longer works there, right? So the man at the front desk, his name is Renee. Daniel like, is that French? He was like, no. So Daniel asked him, like, he was trying to sweet talk the man, right? Talking about his beautiful eyes and everything. And Daniel asked him, could he run a plate? And the man told him, fuck no, basically, right? So the man turned around to the computer, and on the computer there was there was a wanted poster of Chanel, right? So Daniel asked the guy, could he validate his parking tag, right? So the guy turned around, and when the guy turned around, Daniel wrote down some numbers. I don't know if that's a number for on the scanner. You know what? It might be because it'll come up again later, right? So we see Corey. He's on Instagram Live. He is defending Chanel, and in the live chat, you can see that there were 21,000 people in there, and there were hearts going up and down the stream. He was talking about this one girl, this one case that he worked, and that's gonna come up a little bit later. Now we move over to Adrian, right? So we see Adrian. Adrian is at a convenience store, and he was getting some things, and the clerk behind the clerk noticed who he was. He was a fan of Adrian's, right? And he asked Adrian for a picture, and Adrian was like, nah, not right now. And so the man got in his feelings and got upset about it. And so when Adrian walked out, the man had his phone up and he was still taking pictures of Adrian. And I was like, oh, fuck. Because you could see Chanel in the background. I was like, damn, they finna find Adrian and Chanel. So Adrian went back to the car and told Chanel, like, we got to switch cars. So he called up his boy Dallas, asking him to help, he needed a favor from him, right? Now, we see as Jax was watching this, I think this was the interrogation of Chanel. And so Jax broke down crying. And so Corey came into her office to check on her. And, he told her, like, that's what abused women do. They're good at hiding things from the people that they love the most. And that there was nothing that Jax could do. Same thing that Lewis said to her, right? Now we move back over to La Naima. I can't be too upset with Naima because I did this as a kid too, right? there were a few times that I did this when I was a kid. Like I would call my best friend and I, if we wanted to hang out with each other. Sometimes if I was at my grandmother's house, he would call it to my grandmother's house, and he was asked if I could come over. And instead of I would go. Sometimes I would go. I would go around my grandmother and call my mama and be like, "Hey, ma, can I go over such and such house over my best friend's house?" Right? And she was like, "I don't care, but have you talked to your big mama?" I was like, "No." She was like, "Well, and then my friend, they would be on their way over there." She's like, before they come over there, you need to talk to your big mama and make sure that it's okay. Because if I was spending the night with her, she would want to know what time I'm. And as an adult today, I understand it. So Naima got upset because the mama came over and Lewis didn't know that she had even called that girl's mama to come pick her up because I've done that before too. I called my friend and I'm like, can I I asked, could I come over? His mom said yes, I could come over, but didn't know that I hadn't at that time talked to my mom or my grandmother about coming over. So and it happened kind of like Naima. The thing was, I was walking out the house and my grandma said, "Where are you going?" I was like, I'm going because me and my friend had been on the phone. She's like, "Where are you going?" And I'm like, "I'm going over to my best friend's name is James." So I'm like, "I'm going over to James." She's like, She's like, "Have you talked to?" She's like, "You didn't talk to me, or have you talked to your mama?" I was like, no." She's like, "Well, go call your mama and ask her." And I was like, "Okay." And I didn't have the same situation where she got punished, but my mom's like, "Don't do that again. Like, don't do that. You need to talk to me or your grandmother." So I today's date, I understand why, but at that time, and the crazy thing was when I did it, I was a little bit. I think I was a little bit older than I am because I was like in my teen when I did this. I was a teenager, like 13, 14 years old. Wasn't driving yet, but I was a little bit older than her. So I was like, well, I ain't no little kid no more. So why I got to ask y'all for permission to go somewhere? But I get it. But Naima got grounded. Now we move back over to Jackson Court, right? So they're talking about how good the Instagram Live it was helpful, right? But now they want to release those photos, and Corey is like, we shouldn't release them before the trial. And so Jack says, well, we can't do it, but Sally can. So then Crystal turned the news up, and on the news they're talking about Chanel, and they had the photo of her at the gas station, right? So then we see Jax is on the phone with Daniel, who got hit on the plate, and he called and told Jax, like, I know I know the last location, and I'm on my way. But he was kind of apprehensive about getting out the car. She was like, Daniel, don't worry about getting out the car. Don't approach them. Just call us, right? So then we move over to Dallas, who is trying to get a car for Chanel and Adrian, right? But while he's sitting in his car smoking a blunt, he got pulled over by the cops, pulled up on him and turned his lights on. And so they came and they arrested him because he had a warrant out for his arrest, right? It ain't what he thought it was for. It was for domestic abuse, right? And so they arrested him. So then we see Daniel listening on the scanner, and he called up Jax, who called Corey. So the cops, they have Chanel's location. So they called up Miss Hardass, right? Saying, you know, actually, Jax called Corey saying Miss Hardass, well, she'll call Miss Hardass because, again, the cops have their location. So they call Miss Hardass up on the phone, right? And you guys remember what I was saying earlier about the whole Miss Hardass doing the interview, saying the press conference, saying that she was armed and dangerous. Well, they hit her with this could really fuck up your case because if you have a trigger happy cop who finds Chanel, shoots Chanel, and let's say they take Chanel out, Chanel then becomes the martyr. And so Miss Hardass got a copter with her, so they were like, "Let us be the ones to find her," right? So the cops say, "We'll have two police escorts with you, and that Chanel is to ride with the cops." And I was like, okay. But Jax also said no sirens. So we see Chanel and Jax, and they were about to, run, but Jax and Corey pulled up on them. Now, I could have swore they said two police escorts. That was more than two police escorts. That was a whole squad of police cars with their lights on. And Jax was like, I said no lights, but they eventually turned the sirens off, but had the lights flashing. And Jax is pleading with Chanel to come back, and Chanel did agree, and the cops arrested her and both Corey, right? So we see as Jax went to go see Chanel, and she asked her, like, why did you run? And Chanel was like, the reason why I ran is because of you. Public opinion, the fact that the public is doubting me, which now has you doubting me as well. And she said, Chanel said to Jax, like, when it comes down to you, I've saw the people that you've defended. Even when people had doubts, you still won the case. But when it comes down to me, you felt like you couldn't win the case. So why should I? And then you pawned me off onto Corey. So Jax apologized to Chanel, and she said to Chanel, like, I'm here for you. And Chanel said that, Jax apologized to her for not seeing the signs. And Chanel was just like, she just suppressed everything. And it's when you hear that, it's terrible that she had to suppress everything that JT was doing to her, right? So after that, Jax went to go to Corey's office, and she told him that she wants to come on as second chair, right? And he asked her, "You don't think I can win this case?" She said, "No." He said, "Okay, if you come on, I am strictly first chair." He said he doesn't want a repeat of, you know, he doesn't want a repeat of the bail thing, right? And so he agrees and welcomes her as his first chair. Now, Sally's husband, he came home, and Sally was like, "Where have you been?" And she's like, I didn't think that she would run. He told her, she's like, I put up the house, I did this, I did that, I. And he was like, I hear a whole lot of I's and not a lot of we's. He was like, we are now on the hook for paying that bail money. And so he was like, if we don't pay it, we lose the house that we live in, right? So Sally said, well, I can ask my parents for the money. I can call our lien holder and try to see about getting some money from the house and also her retirement. I was like, you have to exhaust all these measures because your cousin, I get it, she was terrified, but girl, you knew that people put up your bail money and you knew that they would lose that money if you ran. Like, it's selfish when you think about it with Chanel. It's a lot of selfishness. I just feel bad for everybody. So we see Corey. So Corey went to go see a client that he was talking about earlier, and he tells her that her appeal was denied, right? But he then also told her about being on Chanel's case, right? Because he's blaming himself for that woman being in prison. So it sounds like it's a similar situation to Chanel's, because he's saying that once he wins Chanel's case, he wants to try to get this woman clemency, right? And that was that. So then we see Jax. So Jax went home to talk to Lewis and to tell Lewis, how scared she was. And she told him about the photos. Once again, he's like, you couldn't have known anything about that. And so she told him that she needs to be on this case to help Chanel, right? But she also needs her family. And she asked him, like, what do you need from me? And he said, what I need from you is honesty. And then at the end of the episode, we see Adrian, right? So Adrian has gotten out of jail. His phone is blowing up. He ignores his phone. And then some white guy pulled up on him, basically telling him to hop in a car. So this $30 million that is missing, I'm thinking Adrian is behind this $30 million, because when the episode, when it went to faded to black, the man said he wants his money. And I was like, oh, I think Adrian is behind that $30 million. Like, I don't think Chanel knows anything about this $30 million. I think it's in Chanel's name, but I don't think she knows anything about it. But that's the episode, you guys. Let me know what you guys thought about it in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications, share the video. Until the next time, stay safe, take care of yourselves, you guys. Wash your hands, be blessed, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.